5 scores! Rick Bud.
We decided to get ourselves back in the game again with our podcast.
Rick Bud and Gary Neville.
Probably the craziest story that you're ever going to hear about hockey.
We're going to be coming back to you on a regular basis.
You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland. And an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Welcome, everyone, to the special edition of the Squid and Ultimate Leafs Fan show. And I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan. Now, not joining me as usual, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. I think he's having some technical problems. But what today's show's all about, well, everyone has dissected the Mitch Marner trade to the ninth decimal point. The one area that I find still intriguing that hasn't been discussed is the memorabilia side of the trade. It's not often a player of this magnitude is moved, and with the continued growth of the memorabilia hobby having no ceiling, valuations at all-time highs, I thought it'd be interesting to gauge the impact of Marner moving to Las Vegas has had any in his, or what it may mean for players moving forward. And now I'm referring to his cards, his jerseys, his game authentic equipment, sticks, etc. So I thought, why not bring in a couple of guys who are very, very well versed in this area? First, anyone who's ever watched a Sportsnet show or a highlight, I will recognize this face, who is also a very accomplished author with 8 books, including his latest called The Next One. And he also has a couple of card books. So this guy does really know what he's talking about. Welcome our good friend, Kenny Reed. Reeds, how's it going?
Good, Mikey. How are you, buddy?
Doing pretty good here today. Well, I'm flying solo, so it's going to be interesting for me without Squid backing me up here, but we'll see what happens. Secondly, but certainly not least, the man behind Canada's leading sports marketing group, and I can almost assure that any listener out there at some point in your life have owned or still owned a signed jersey, an image, a stick, or something from Framer Sports Marketing. Joining us today, the man behind this successful operation, Brian Ermworth. Brian, how's it going?
It's going great, Mike, and thanks for having me on.
So, guys, let me lead this off with this thought. As a kid, we all at some point held some sort of collectible, whether it was cards, sports, or not. I get asked all the time why I started collecting, and the answer is through hockey cards. In my day, the cards were used to play with, and I'm much older than you guys, but were played to play leansies, flips, collect, or trade. I had a paper route, and for $1, I could buy 20 packs. Of course, you rip everyone and open, stuff all the gum in my mouth, and stuff every card into my pocket. Well, these cards with these razor-sharp edges were so compacted in my pockets, I actually had cuts in my legs. And then when riding a bike, it'd even get worse. And it got so bad one time, my mom wanted to take me to the doctor with the cuts in my legs. So, not only that, but the cards are so pressed in packs with that new pack glossy sheen to them, they were hard to handle when you're trying to play flips or throwing them against the wall in the schoolyard. So I would trade them for the rounded ones with the flat edges, get rid of the Gordie Howe and Bobby Hull cards because I knew I wanted the Leaf cards. And then I'd take them and play in the schoolyard. Kenny, what was your experience growing up with cards?
Well, that's funny because when you mention that, and I always see these old cards that are in perfect condition, and I think those cards were owned by somebody that had absolutely no passion for the game. Probably an uncle bought a pack for his nephew, and the nephew opened it and threw them in a drawer, and they survived. But when you pack cards that are well loved, like the ones you had, Mike, that means you love the game. So whenever I see a beat up old card, like the ones you're talking about, I'm like, that card was owned by somebody who really loved the game. So there's a story there. For me, I remember getting my first pack at Mr. Fraser's store. It was down the street from my grandmother's on Union Street in Pictou. It was $0.25, might have been even 20 cents. But, I put all my cards, Brian, you'll like this, in a Wayne Gretzky Daewoo skate box. Because I always say, if Wayne ran a church, I'd like to be the Pope. I was a Wayne guy, so I collected my Wayne cards, and I'd put my Wayne cards in little Ziploc bags. And then around 86, 87, I found out these things were worth money. So I went into mini Brian Aaronworth business mode, and I started collecting and hoarding. And by the time I was 14, I was setting up at shows around Nova Scotia, selling cards, just selling my doubles and trying to keep everything in mint condition, which everything didn't survive in mint condition. So, that was kind of my card story. And, The original stuff I have is all beat up. I still have it. There's pinholes in them from tacking my Montreal Canadiens on the walls. But my Wayne Gretzky's were always in pretty good shape because I did keep them in little Ziploc bags because Mom said these are going to be worth something one day. But my Gretzky rookie's a little beat up, but that's because it was well loved.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Sorry to interrupt, but the card business is not one that I started in the picture frame business and evolved into framed memorabilia, which is really at the forefront of the man cave. But going back to when, and I'm older than you guys, going back to the cards, I used to collect them all the time, but it was really to put in the spokes of your wheels after you, or to flip against the wall and then, shootsies and collect them all. And at the end of the season, you'd throw them all up in the schoolyard and watch all the kids go nuts trying to get them and bump into each other. It was more fun doing that. But I never really collected cards until, and this is actually brand new, that we're now getting, Frameworth is now getting into the card business, and we have our first dealer show in our showroom December 14th. So I'm just learning. I'm gonna sit down with Ken and learn as much as I can about the card business. But right now, my expertise is more in the framed memorabilia and autographs.
Well, Johnny, just as a final note, I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I was collecting these cards, the frustrating thing was I could never seem to put a complete set together. I'd lay them out on the living room floor with the 6 teams, and I'd had them all stacked. But I noticed that the trader pile or double pile was like 3 or 4 times higher than the other ones. And this grew so frustrating. And there were only 120 players in the league at the time with 6 teams. So it shouldn't have been that hard, but it just seemed so crazy for me to ever put a set together. I just grew frustrated. And in a way, it almost deterred me from collecting cards at one point. You guys, Brian, what about you? Well, I know you just said what you went after it, but what about you putting sets together? Or did you ever try?
I never tried, but it's a good question to ask Ken, because I know today they probably, I think they do, but I'm not sure, is limit certain cards to make them harder to collect, and that makes them more value. Obviously, the super cards, that there's very few, if not 1 or 2. So, and that's how come the value goes up. But Kenny, is that correct? Or
yeah, so the geeks like me call them chase cards. So back in the day, in baseball, it was common. You'd have SP, which was short print. So you look at the tall boy set from 64, 65, there's about 20 cards in there that are short print. And they're harder to get. And the card companies weren't stupid. They knew that if people are going to collect sets, they'd buy more packs and searching for those cards. So they limited some print runs. There's theories that the Honus Wagner, the T206 Honus Wagner, that's so valuable that everybody knows about. There's theories that the card was pulled because Honus Wagner didn't like tobacco. There's also theories that it was short printed to make more people chase it. So it's almost like a carnival tactic going back, right? So you look at the tall boy set, which is an iconic set. There's a Pierre Pilote short printed, an all-star card. So there's about 20 cards in that are short printed. And I remember my mom going and buying a whole box from Bob Naylor's store because I couldn't get the Steve Eisman, but I got it in the box that mom got. So I completed my set. That might've been a sticker set, I think. You got a good mom. Oh, great mom, Brian. She's the best. Shout out Sweet Marie. She's probably listening.
Well, I mean, Kenny, you just touched on it, that the hobby for years was known as a kid's hobby, and anybody who collected into the adult years or late teenagers was kind of a geek or, nerdy, weird. Now, but I got news for the listeners out there who haven't been paying attention. As you just touched on, it's become harder. It's now become $1 billion business. Yeah. And unlike today's hobby wasn't always about just collecting it for the sake of collecting. And today it's almost like an investment for people. Mm-hmm. And coming from Bay Street, I'd like to use the term cardboard options. And you guys understand what that means. And it's finding that hidden jewel or the next one, like that nice little plug for your book there, Kenny.
I love it.
And taking, so I mean, just maybe expand on that thought where where the business has gone today from your view, Kenny, is now it's more investment than it is about really collecting.
It depends on who the collector is. Like, I think everybody would like to make money off their cards at the end of the day, right? Like, everyone's cards at some point will probably be sold, when you say so long for good. Your kids may not want them. Your wife definitely won't want them. So I think everybody would like to make money off their cards. I think with the modern cards, there's a big gambling aspect now. And I don't collect the modern stuff. I just collect the old stuff. I'm a nostalgic guy. But I think with the modern cards, it's very, there's a gambling aspect with people paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a pack open to get that one big hit, as they call it. And you see little kids going around the shows with their briefcases and stuff like that. But I think, Brian, you know this, like you're selling stuff for man caves. I think there's a large base that's a collector base, and there's another base that's a investor base. But I think there's probably more people that would call themselves collector/investor. Like if it pays off one day, great. If it doesn't, so be it. I mean, I'm looking to put my kids through college one day. Probably not going to own my Bobby Orr rookie forever if somebody makes me a real nice offer on it, because I need to feed little Cobes and Lou. But I think anyone who spends a couple $100 for their man cave is maybe just a collector. But at the end of the day, if somebody offered them something outrageous for it, they'd probably take it.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, Brian, do you have a thought on this? Sorry.
Well, yeah, it's funny because the framing business, the memorabilia man cave side of it, if you're a marketing guy and you just watch what's going on in the card business over the years, and of course I come from actually more art and picture framing side before we started this business, and there was a thing called limited edition art, and that was when you couldn't afford the original, or if it was a small edition, that there was no original, there was just 6 originals and they called it a limited edition. Well, we've taken that concept and moved it into the memorabilia side. So a lot of the pieces now, especially for Sidney Crosby, because the value, for the average fan, you can get a Sidney Crosby home and away jersey, and they've been in the marketplace for as long as he's been playing. But everything that we're bringing out now is following that. Okay, let's make them a little harder to get. So for instance, we've got the Olympic jerseys coming out for Sidney. There's only 187 of the semi-pro models. And once they're gone, they're gone. Whereas in 2010, we bought as many jerseys. I don't know how many we put in the marketplace, but eventually they dried up, and we can't get the raw materials anymore to get them signed. So we're following that suit. Everything that we've done in the last couple of years with Sidney in particular has been limited edition. So they're going to be hard. Some are only 25, some are 50. A lot of them are 87. So we're if you're looking to invest, but my advice to everybody has always been buy what you like first, and hopefully it'll go up in value. And if you're smart and you like stuff that will go and appreciate in value, then that's a double bonus there.
And for the love of God, close your curtains and keep the sun out of your man cave.
That's exactly right.
Brian, I just want to expand on a little bit. Sidney Crosby, of course, you touched on as one of your biggest clients, and he's been a big win for you guys. But maybe let the listeners know, how do you identify? It's pretty tough to identify the next Sidney Crosby, but how do you identify a player you want to put under the framework band or brand, as an example, and like a phenom like a Trey Yasevich, just with the Blue Jays as an example? What would the process be for framework to go and approach a player and bring them under contract or bring them with you guys?
Well, it's a funny thing because I think I opened this whole can of worms with Sidney back in 2005 when we signed him going to Rimouski to a deal. And that really wasn't done back then. People waited. If they became a good big star, they would sign them and there was not too many players in the marketplace back then. There was Upper Deck and Steiner. Fanatics didn't even exist. But after I did that and people realized what happened, they started jumping in when the kids were 14, 15, 16. And now you really have to do your homework. And so we lost out on a few players after Sidney. Well, mind you, a few years after Sidney, CAA, who is the biggest agent in the game, liked what we did with Sidney so much that every player coming into the league that was under their umbrella came to Frameworth first. And that was great for us for the most part. Some of them never panned out, but we had Kane and Taves and a number of their big stars, Malkin. But at the end of the day, if you're going in to try and find players like McDavid as they're, playing in Erie, et cetera, that's great, but there's not a generational player coming up every day. So you can get burned on a lot, as we have in the past, because now you got to invest money when they're going into junior. and they may never get drafted. So, you got to hopefully, Celebrinis and those kind of players and Bedards, they don't come along every day. So you got to get lucky, and you might have to bid on 5 or 6 a year to get one of those guys and not make it happen.
You need your own scouting department.
Yeah, exactly. You got to. Well, I want to expand on a little bit, and let's go to the subject at hand, Mitch Marner. So, Brian, could come back to you again on this. You had a working arrangement with him. I'm not sure if you still do or not.
Yes.
But he's been an extremely popular seller for you because I watch your site and see your stuff all the time. With his departure, how has Maple Leaf stuff fared since?
Well, Maple Leafs in general are not doing very well for us. But Mitch Marner in particular, nobody's buying. Well, there's still the odd Mitch Marner fan up here that'll buy a Toronto item, but we now have his Vegas items. Now, the problem with players as good as they are on the West Coast, and there are exceptions like Celebrini, is that they're not on the highlight reel as much until the next morning. And Ken will know that too. You're waiting for the highlights and from the West Coast. So they have to be making a big name for themselves all the time. So Mitch is playing very well in Vegas, and he still sells well because he's got a lot of fans up here. He's a Toronto boy. Obviously, Toronto is one of the biggest markets around. So anybody wearing a Toronto jersey has a head start. Anybody wearing a Montreal or any team from Canada has a head start up here in Canada. Vegas, I'm not sure. We don't have a local market down there as much. So it's hard to say what's going on in the local market. But I would venture to say that he's doing pretty well down there.
Now, Kenny, how about his cards? Has there been a new demand for his rookie card as an example, or have you seen or followed from the new Legion of Vegas supporters that are out there?
Well, I was just at the Toronto Sports Card Expo, and I didn't see anybody hunting for Mitch Marner cards, but I will say this. He had, 8-9 good years as a Leaf. Leafs memorabilia, Leafs cards are kind of like bank stock. They're eventually always going to rise or at least be consistent. Yeah. I mean, look at Rick. When Austin Matthews breaks his record, all of a sudden Rick's in demand to sign stuff because, Austin's becoming the all-time leading scorer, or people want a Rick 5 rookie card because Austin's the new guy and Rick's name comes back up. Yeah. So Leafs fans are always, much like tickets to a game, they're always going to buy. So one day you'll be able to sell your Mitch Marner rookie cards again. One day there'll be people knocking on Brian's door going, oh, man, I need some Mitch Marner signed Leaf stuff, because the Leafs they're eternal, man. They're one of those iconic franchises. Their fans are always going to want their stuff. I mean, look at Doug. Look at Wendell. They're always – their stuff's always moving. And I think one day you'll see a Marner, Nylander, Matthews stuff. It'll be – if it's selling, it's sold over the last 10 years, and in the future it'll sell again, because as tough as times are right now for the Maple Leafs, as we talk right now, I believe they're tied for dead last in the East. In 15 years, in 10 years, there's little 10, 12-year-olds who are going to look back on the runs the Leafs had with those Game 7 stretches they went on, and they're going to consider them runs, which is crazy to think. Remember, this is a team that put out a VHS copy of them making it to a conference final in the mid-90s. The bar's not high. There's people going to be clamoring for Mitch Marner stuff for years to come, guaranteed.
Hey, Mike, here's an interesting topic for probably another podcast, but it's something that I've always wondered.
Yeah.
Our biggest sellers in Toronto right now are obviously the current big stars like Matthews and those guys, and Nylander. But the biggest sellers besides that are the guys that have great memories. We just did a signing with Matt Sundin at the card show. Yeah. Daryl Sittler, I spent the afternoon yesterday, and there's a whole big thing going on with him with his 50th anniversary. Oh my God, I think I was at that game too. 50th anniversary of his 10-point night. There's all sorts of promotions that are going to be happening around that. Doug Gilmour, Wendell Clark are gold. Now here's the question. If the Leafs win a Stanley Cup in the near future, and who knows, but they could, what happens to the popularity of those items? So to Ken's point, they'll always be gold, but will they will they drop off drastically because everybody's on the cup bandwagon? And I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But I've always wondered, would these guys that have been making a living off signing their name, probably more so than when they make more signing their name now than they do when they were playing, or they did when they were playing. So I don't know how that'll affect their business, but there'll always be gold, as Ken says, and anybody that wore a Toronto uniform that had any kind of stature will always be gold here.
Well, you do know there's going to be an emotional reaction from fans, and fans are going to be maybe a little bit sour, but time heals wounds, as they say. And to you, both your points, over time, like a lot of these players that you're referring to, some of them left on bad terms with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but now they've come back and they've been revered as heroes from the past. So again, to what you guys have just touched on, at some point there is a resurgence of this, and the cycle will come back that way. And we saw what happened with the Blue Jays this year, and like the explosion at the end of the year, people lined up for an hour to go and buy a jersey of any kind or anything with a Blue Jay on it. So I guess the message to fan is, you may be sour right now, but you look in your closet and you see those 6 Marner jerseys that you just bought over the last 3 years, and you got about $3,000 or $4,000 in them. Maybe just leave them there for a while when you really want to toss them out the door.
And,
you know
and
what?
Also, with the run the Jays were on, what was such a big thing before every game? Who's going to throw out the first pitch? All these old guys came back, and their stock went up. So I'm the rising tide raises all boats kind of theory with that stuff.
You know, Mike, I just want to make one point here, which is very important to me.
Yeah.
Mitch Marner, you can love him. Yeah, people love him. They hate him. They blame him. They think that was a bad move, that they let him just disappear. I will tell you this. I know him personally. You can't find a nicer kid than Mitch Marner. He is just a really great kid. I was out in Calgary for the Olympic camp that they had back in the summer. And we're in a restaurant, and I've done work with him. He was on the other side with all the players and the team of the restaurant, came walking over, talked to me for 10 minutes. How you doing? What's going on? Talked to fans, talked to different people. He just got such a bad rap. And I just want to make that point because I love the guy. And for what it's worth, I think he got a bad rap here in Toronto, and you couldn't find a nicer guy. I just wanted to say that.
Well, I couldn't agree with. Well, I have never met him. Actually, I haven't met him, but I know Squid has spent some time with him at a lot of the Leaf functions, and he echoes the same sentiments. When Austin broke his record and he was invited to, they invited him down to the MasterCard, and they went and he spent some time with the players. These guys couldn't have enough of him and pick his brain, and just showed a level of respect for him from the past. And that came from guys like Marner, Matthews, and the rest of them. So people that want to slide these guys, they do appreciate where they're playing and what the significance of what it means. But I also want to add it on to all of that. So with the possibility of some major stars moving, and this is one of the reasons why I look at this, I could say, is now as a sports appraiser, and there's my self-plug, some of the issues I get sometimes with somebody like Kadri. One of the guys had a big collection of Maple Leaf stuff, and he had some Kadri game-worn items. Well, the values declined when he left Toronto because of the market, and you do pay that Toronto premium, and you get that with the New York Yankees and teams along those levels. But a couple big players, like the lines of an Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid, like Kenny, let's start with the cards. What would you think? The rookie cards are always going to hold. But what would you think would happen to the rest of their cards if 2 players of that magnitude ever moved in a few years?
Well, I think it would depend what market they moved to, right? Like when Wayne was traded, he went to LA, and that revived, that changed everything. I think if hypothetically thinking, if McDavid or Matthews left, they're going to go to a large market. And I think what Brian said earlier, McDavid's a generational player. So McDavid's always going to hold. But you know what? The card thing is weird because Mario Lemieux, as awesome as he was, he's not as popular in the card world as you think he should be. The card world's weird. The card world it's Gretzky, it's Howe, and then it's kind of everybody else. And the modern stuff, I think it's kind of McDavid and Sid, and it's everybody else and Ovechkin. The card world's very particular. I think in the memorabilia world, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but people like getting an odd jersey. Like there might be people out there who want a Doug Gilmour Montreal Canadiens jersey just to kind of have that hipster look with Doug, or the Wendell Clark New York Islanders jersey.
Yeah.
But I think a card value of a McDavid, if he were to leave, I don't think that would be affected at all. And I think it depends on what market too. He could go up because he's that generational player that the card world really loves the generational player. And I think the memorabilia world, they love the generational player too. But I think there's a lot more room for other guys in it. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the key players are always going to hold their value, like the cards. But Gretzky, Matthews is always going to be big, even if he moves. But I think in my world, they're more homers. So they might have a favorite player on Montreal. Like we have Noah Dobson now. Great player. Is he the biggest star on that team? No, but on the other hand, they might want that jersey on the wall because they're a defenseman and they're a Montreal fan. So they take that jersey or any one of their favorite players. Might be because of their looks or the way their style. Like Wendell was a great player all around, but boy, anybody that likes a rough game and a tough game, they want Wendell stuff. As opposed to maybe Daryl Sittler that wants more of a finesse stuff. So I think in the memorabilia world, aside from the real true collector that's looking for investments, I think what you're going to find is people will buy, their favorite team and their favorite player on that team. And it doesn't always have to be the biggest star because unless they're looking at that full investment value, then they just want something they like on the wall.
Well, I think along that line also, like I do a lot of sports appraisals for collectors, not only in hockey, but basketball, baseball, for estates, divorces, insurance purposes, and so on. And the one thing that I find fascinating, and I hope they will listen to this, is the fact that, they're very surprised at their prices dropping in the initial price that they paid. Like, especially a player like Kawhi Leonard. I did an appraisal for a poor guy who had all basketball stuff. He got caught up in the 18-19 run, spent a fortune on all the stuff that he bought from the Raptors, and then he wanted it insured. Well, the only two bits of good news I had from it, I had good and bad news. Well, the bad news was his stuff, he could still buy it all online for probably about half of what he paid for it. The good news was his insurance premiums weren't going to be any near what he thought they were going to be in the original case. So how do you guys, and both you guys, I'd like you to answer, how do you guys both advise, like a Bo Bichette leaves Toronto, and we've touched on this a little bit, but how do you guys, Brian, actually, let's use Josh Donaldson. Look at the run he had in 2015 and the explosion of his stuff you had with him and the rest of the Blue Jays and where it is today.
Well, I'll tell you something about the Blue Jays. It's a bandwagon city for sure. 2 weeks before the playoffs, we were having a hard time. We had Kevin Gausman as a exclusive. We had Manoah. We had a bunch of other guys. But we couldn't sell. We were having a hard time selling Kevin Gausman.
Out to the showroom.
And sorry about that. So we had a hard time selling Kevin Gausman, and then the playoffs hit, and then we couldn't keep him in stock. So where I was worried about not moving all the inventory that we had during our exclusive deal, now I'm down to like 10 jerseys out of maybe 250, 300 signed jerseys. So when the Jays are hot, you can't get enough of the product, and when they're not, it's a tough sell.
And Kenny, from the card perspective, it's probably a little tougher to gauge, but what would your thoughts be along those lines?
I would just encourage anybody, again, going back to what Brian said,
get
it because you like it. If you're buying something as an investment in the sports memorabilia world, as much as we hype it up, or some people hype it up, I think you should get it because you like it. If you're going to buy the Gausman ball, get it because you like Kevin Gausman and you want it in your man cave, or get it for your nephew who likes Kevin Gausman. If you're going to buy, a picture of, let's say, Chris Tanev, get it because you like Chris Tanev. Chris Tanev not going to end up in the Hockey Hall of Fame, but he's a good defenseman. You're a fan of the team. Get it because you like him. I think people get caught up in the investment side as opposed to the fan side. And I like what Brian said about, Noah Dobson. Some Montreal Canadiens fans just want a picture of Noah Dobson on their wall, and that's cool. I like that. I think that's what it should be. And if one day this stuff accumulates and you can sell it off and make a profit, power to you. But I think you should do it because you like it. And I always tell that people about the cards. Collect what you like. I mean, I go to a card show and people say, "What are you looking for?" I said, "I don't know." Or a Gordy Gallant 1976 WHA card, and people look at me like I got 3 heads, because that's what I like. I have this weird obsession with the WHA.
Yeah.
I like weird things, and I'm not going to get rich doing it, but I do it because I like it. There's other people who want to get rich doing it. And my advice is, if you want to get rich doing it, do what you used to do on Bay Street, Mike. Do your research. Really, really get deep into this before you fork over life-changing money. But I'm with Brian. Do it because you like it. I mean, Brian, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure the majority of your sales are to people that just love the game and want something for their home and want to cherish it as a fan.
That's exactly right. And one thing that Frameworth I'm pretty proud of is we were right at the forefront of the man cave, fan cave type of situation where you were so happy. I mean, we started our business because of a piece that I designed for myself, and it actually had all the Upper Deck cards from the Blue Jays in it around the program from the World Series in '92 when I started my business. And I'm picture framing for interior designers, and I made one for my office, put all the cards, cut all the little openings for the cards, and put the program in the middle and hung it in my office. And I liked it so much that I sent one over to a friend of mine at Labatt's who gave me a little bit of custom framing. And all of a sudden, by Christmas time, he phoned me. He said, "Brian, I love this. How much?" And I said, "Walt, it's a gift." And he said, no, everybody in the office wants one. I've told you the story before, but by Christmas time, $250,000 worth of one item that we sold. And then I knew I'm in the wrong business. Interior designers were out and sports was in, and everybody saw that piece on the wall. And then the Leafs were hot with Doug Gilmour, and everybody wanted a jersey on the wall. And all of a sudden, where you used to have an autograph photo that you'd stick in a binder like you would hockey cards, people were framing them and putting them on the wall and in offices and in boardrooms and homes. And that is really what has accelerated our business tremendously over the years, is sexy looking stuff that you're a sports fan, you want to see it in front of you all the time. And you look around my office, my favorite things are sitting here. I don't have an inch of wall space. Some family items, I have to keep my wife happy. And the rest of them, me and Wayne or me and Sydney or whatever it is. And it's just every day I come to the office, it makes me feel good.
Well, I get asked all the time when I go to places about collecting, how I started and how you go about it, and ask for advice. And just right along, Kenny, you touched right on it. And, I'd say to people, listen, you wouldn't buy a car, you wouldn't buy a house, you wouldn't buy a pair of shoes without knowing something about the item you're buying. Learn about what you're buying. And if you're buying it, buy it for the right reason. Just what you touched on also, Brian. If you like the player, you like the team, you like the event, like the 10-point night, like the Kawhi shot, any of those things, buy it for that reason. Because the minute that dollar leaves your hands, you're not the only one buying that. Consider the money gone, but consider it your personal piece of history that you're keeping that means something to you. That's it. Mm-hmm. Don't think anything else. We had people come by our table all the time, and we're at the same sports card show, and I run into you guys there all the time. And Dave Keon's charging $170 for an 8x10 autograph. Now, I had some photos of Keon that were exclusive, and they're considered very, not rare, but they're hard to find photos, and we're going to sell them for $100. And they're worth more than that. And I was take this one, and guys were looking and grunting at me. And I finally stopped one guy and I said, "Oh, wait a minute, are you frowning at the price?" "Well, yeah." I said, "Look, you're paying $170 for the autograph, right?" "Yes." "Well, why'd you go and put that on a $20 photo?" Like, believe me, you don't have to buy my image. Go somewhere else and spend the money. You will thank me down the road. You want that, put it on the right piece of significance. So along those lines, they would just grunt and walk away. But Brian, I want to really drive this point home about the emotion of people buying things. You've spoken to me before, and I don't think I'm speaking at school saying this, but with the Edmonton Oilers and the Blue Jays as examples, you lost 2 big orders, or 2 obviously significant orders from people who pre-ordered if both teams won.
Yes.
I don't want to rub the sore point into you, but it just signifies the significance and how people do get emotionally attached and caught up.
Well, a win is huge. I mean, and I've been on both sides of that coin. I mean, been with Sidney Crosby for 3 Stanley Cups. I've been with Wayne Gretzky when he retired. And so there's a lot of big games that have happened, and I live and die by those games. You don't think for 1 minute the Blue Jays with Kevin Gausman and some of the things that we're doing, like potential orders for $1 million turn into a championship, an ALCS championship, go down to a couple 100,000. Wow. I don't need to bet any games. I got enough on every game that right now I'm riding the wave with Sidney. Almost every day he's hitting another milestone, and I'm heading to Florida next week. Or anyway, so.
Hey, Brian, how about Mike Weir? How about that one? Didn't you sign? You got him like what? Like a couple weeks before he wins the Masters? I mean, there's a.
Like I said, I'm both sides. In fact, as the story goes, and Ken will write the book one day for me, but Mike Weir was actually how I got Sidney Crosby, because Mike Weir, we did a deal with him 2 weeks before he won the Masters, not knowing that he was going to be anything like he ended up once he won the Masters. And then in a meeting shortly after, with the IMG, they talked about this young next Wayne Gretzky, and they asked if I was interested. And so I said, and I've told you this story before, but I was so worried about losing Mike Weir that I wanted to show him that I was a big boy and playing in the big game. So I said, yeah, I'll take the kid. And I didn't even really know who he was at the time. Mike Weir did great for us for the next year. And after that, Sidney Crosby's been good for the next 25, so it's pretty good.
Along with a lot of other ones too. So Ken, just I want to thank you guys for spending all this time with me and then my vacant winger. Thoughts on overall card market and where you see it going, and maybe even tying in AI. Does that get involved in the world?
Cool, could. I would say about cards, I would be the bank stock guy. I like the old stuff. I like the old reliable stuff.
Me too.
The new card world to me is absolute insanity. Power to you if you're in it. It's Ultimate Warrior. It's Hulk Hogan and Macho Man combining. It's wild. It's running wild. Prices are all over the place. If you're going in it to make money, good on you. If you're going in to just collect, good on you. There's a huge gambling aspect to it. But also, I'd like to stress to people out there that there's room for everybody. There's low grade cards that are cheap. You can buy a pack of Tim Hortons for $1.50 for your kid. So anyone that says cards are out of control or I can't afford them anymore, you can, but it's just certain cards. And for a vintage collector like me, oh my God, I can't afford anything. Yes, you can. Just buy it at a lower grade. So I would say, I don't mean to be a people pleaser, but I think there's something for everyone. But I think there's a high risk side to it that I don't think existed before in the first boom of 1990. But again, if Mike, like you said, if you're going in it as an investment aspect, really do your research. But I'm in it for fun, and if I make a little money one day, so be it. And I think I represent most collectors. I think I'm just a guy that likes to collect, and if it pays off one day, great. So that's, and I think there's room for everybody in that pool.
Brian?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that we're talking about the same thing. Collecting is for everybody. If you got some money and you want to try and invest, go ahead. If you don't, you don't. I did want to say that I have wanted to do a shameless plug here, but it's on behalf of Sidney Crosby and his foundation, that if you're looking for what I consider one of the better investments around, because there's only one, we're auctioning off for his foundation, an original painting that's on Frameworth's website. You can find all the bidding information about that. It's all going, the proceeds are going to his foundation, which supports a number of children's charities, et cetera, et cetera. This is one of Sidney's passions. The painting is amazing. I'll probably put in a bid myself. But anyways, if you go to frameworth.com, you can find it on the banner, and it'll give you all the information. But I thought I'd just throw that in there. One of a kind original painting. There won't be another one.
And that's Sidney Crosby. He's one of a kind too. Speaking of good dudes, I mean, just a good Cole Harbor boy. I mean, big giant legs, greasy donair diet, good kid.
Well, and it's not an act. A friend of mine told me a story about him the other day from years ago at the Brad Richards golf tournament. There was a family, the little kid was sick. My buddy bought a Sidney Crosby signed jersey, or not unsigned jersey, and Crosby was supposed to sign it, or he wasn't there. Sorry, he showed up as a surprise but he had to leave early to go to his own event, and he had agreed to sign the jersey before he left. But he left and headed to the airport, and on the way to the airport, they realized that he hadn't signed the jersey. So Brad Richards called him. He turned around and came back and spent 15, 20 minutes with the family and signed the jersey. And that's when he was very young. Yeah. So that speaks volumes to the type of human being you're dealing with.
Very special man. I'll tell you that, knowing him for all these years, watching him grow up from 15 years old to now, and he's his own person. And boy, he doesn't make mistakes.
My own story for all the sports appraisals I do. One guy I break more people's hearts than I tell them most of the time about what their stuff's worth. But one chap in particular I found very fascinating. He's got a fantastic baseball collection and everything. Cards sets going right back to 53, right through. And then he passed away, and so I had to do this estate evaluation. But what he had done was he had collected every Top Gun Upper Deck card from every player from inception, right to the day he died. And I went through that, and it was funny. Like, he was speculating on those that, if one hits like a McDavid, Matthews, and all the hot guys, it covers the whole amount of investment that he made. And every card was graded PSA 10,
wow.
Gem,
Young Guns. Wow.
And, it was funny for all the good ones, like every 10 bad ones, there's one good one. And but to me, that was one guy who made that bet and made money at it. But for the most part, to your point, Ken, collect them for the right reason. And the right reason is because you enjoy it. So, Kenny, I'd leave one final question with you. That one card that's eluded you that you're out there looking for still. I know you go there with an open mind every time, but there's got to be one or two that you really covet.
I would love a 51-52 Parkhurst Gordie Howe, just for the significance of it. And again, he was my dad's favorite player, right? So I'm like, I when I look at these things, I see stories. So yeah, I would love a 51-52 Parkhurst Gordie Howe just to have in my collection. But who knows?
Sorry, go.
There, I remember a kid in high school bringing two to school. They belonged to his dad, and I was like, "These are nice." And they were $1,200 then, and $1,200 to me in grade 12, man, that was a lot of money. But
I had to appraise a 51 set for a guy with an 8th grade, the only one I'd ever seen, and it was missing the Howe. And the family wanted to make the decision: should we go and spend the $50,000? I said it might cost you a little more for the Howe to complete the set and then really sell the whole thing.
Yeah. Hard no, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, if I ever stumble upon one, it'll be because I've had too many Michelob Ultra and I run into a barn and a bunch of cards fall out of the attic, because that's I got to put my kids through school, boys. I can't be spending that kind of money on cards.
Brian, tell us about Frameless. What exciting new projects you got coming up for fans, especially with Christmas around the corner? This Sidney Crosby, please, folks, go and have a look at that.
Well, we've got that. We've got our big, starts today, Black Friday week, and then we have our big annual Christmas sale on Saturday. And then on December 14th, we're merging into the card business. Ken, I'll talk to you about that. We got 70 dealers showing their cards in our showroom. It's new to me. We're partnering with another company, Dan the something or other. Sorry, just did this yesterday, and Doug Gilmore's going to be here for an autograph signing that same day between 11 and 12. So you can get all the details on the site, but it's a big month for us. We're jammed up, so it's always busy at Christmas.
So there's 70 different dealers or 70 different sets of cards coming out.
70 different dealers. Well, we're going to get into the card business. We're purchasing cards ourselves from Grosvenor as a distributor. But in our showroom, which is a massive showroom, 7,000 square feet, we have 70 tables, and they're all sold out or will be shortly. And just like a miniature card show. This company came to us and said they wanted to use our showroom to do this. I guess you can see them every weekend in Toronto somewhere. I'm not that familiar. Ken, you would be. But we said, okay, you can use our showroom, and hopefully, and then the people that are coming will be able to get an additional discount on anything on the walls. And
Brilliant.
so we'll see how that goes. It's interesting to a new channel of business for us.
Is this a new line of cards coming out, or existing cards just by the dealers? I just so everybody's clear what it really is.
No, these are cards that Ken might come by and try and find his cards that he's looking for. It's just,
okay. It's like a mini card show. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, you now have to go to this.
I'll go. Yeah, I'll bring the boys. I'll geek it up.
What's that date?
We'll get you in to sign some books there, Ken.
Hey, I'm waiting on a shipment to come in, Brian. So yeah, I'd love to come out and sign some books. Absolutely.
So talk about your latest venture. By the way, we've got the next one on, Kenny, while we have you. We give you a little plug, but I like to hear a little bit more about it. I've got it here. It's next on my list to read, by the way.
Awesome. Well, as you guys both know, I love my stories, right? I like sitting around with a pop, telling some stories. So I called up about 15 scouts, and this is not a how-to scout hockey. And as the scouts told me, and I say, anybody can scout Sidney Crosby. It's not difficult. That kid's really good. But how do you find the third, fourth line guys? And what stories have these road warrior scouts who spend their entire winter on the road, what stories have they accumulated over the years around the ranks? And there's some doozies in there. There's some whoppers. So one of the guys, one of his first on-ice incidents ended up in the pages of Sports Illustrated for its sheer violence. There was one guy who was a psychologist at Kingston Penn at Millhaven Maximum Security when 12 men broke loose in 73. Brian, you've done a lot of stuff with the hip. So that story inspired 38 years old. He was the psychologist there, and he became a hockey scout. So it's all over the place. It's just good old hockey stories.
I'm going to deep dive into it next week when I get a few moments. I got my autographed copy from Ken at one of the book signings that he did.
Oh, you guys are both nice enough to come to my book launch, so thank you.
Hey, and Brian, what's the date of that card show again, or the gate card display again?
It's December 14th.
Now, people need tickets to get in, or is it just free admission?
You can buy them online. We'll just be getting our point of purchase stuff up on our website today or tomorrow. We're just busy doing the Black Friday sale. So you'll find all the information by tomorrow on our website.
Fantastic. Well, boys, it's a pleasure always speaking to you guys. Thanks so much for doing this. Squidless, but I think we got through it. You guys gave some great information for people out there, and I can't thank you guys both enough.
Hey, awesome. My pleasure.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Brian. Pucks in deep. Here we go. Quick start.
Thanks, boys.